Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is about why I won. Again, I like to make videos like this from time to time to help people understand that I've won and I've outmaneuvered and outdone and outsmarted everybody else. It is clear that I beat the gay-groomed, crest-wearing types, the brutes, the nerds, the other privileged betas, and everyone else. Okay, so point number one, all victories are in principle, and what we're seeing here is the pinnacle of wisdom and righteousness versus complete stupidity and wickedness, aka neocolonialism and controlled opposition, etc. Point number two, the timeline definitively proves that they lost and that they are complete fools that resorted to hacking my brain in a childish and desperate attempt to confuse me. Point number three, let us consider the last 10 years. I was mostly in Morgan Hill, California and San Jose the last 10 years, while dumb females who basically all committed to living by the principles of being an airhead slut were in Santa Clara County shunning me. Okay. And they were shunning me as a result of their philosophies. They did so to be an airhead sex cult run puppet slut with no higher cause. Not only do their opinions not matter, but all rebels' opinions don't matter, right? And for a similar reason. Point number four, the opinions of the masses of people who are not smart enough to do what I have, okay? They're not smart enough to do what I've done or to even obey God through me. Include many clear-cut groups of idiots, okay? And these groups include jocks, nerds who are described as foolish and contemptible and worthless by nerds who make the dictionaries, right? K-pop types, rockers, metalheads, hookers, frats. Frats are basically like nerds. They're basically like people at a gay parade too, to some degree. Freemasons. Now, why are Freemasons obviously foolish, even though they try so hard to look smart or something? Because they're Luciferians, right? They're in a secret society that is run by the governing class. You have sex cult types and other neocolonial types as well. So when we consider the opinions, right? So who won? Well, according to who? Some gold digger who's just saying, show her the money? Okay, to Jesus, right? What would Jesus do? What would Jesus think? To who, right? And we consider that the masses of people are dumb. If you shun the top martial artist who's obviously handsome, and this is an objective fact, I've asked lots of people to give their honest opinions, okay? And he's a brain surgeon, son, and so on, and you're dating drug addicts and corporate scum, Weinstein types, and just jocks and emos and goths and rockers and just knuckleheads, just idiots, nerds, boring, lame, stupid people. It's because you're not smart. It's not because when he's making his attempt every day for years that he doesn't know how to approach you. No. You're looking at the situation saying he's not a rocker, he's not your race, he's not this, and you're not looking at it in terms of universal appeal. And that's a stupid mistake. And I've had many conversations with females, and they've basically admitted that that's the problem. And some females call other females dumb bitches and so on. So there's an abundance of evidence to that effect. But if you disagree, please put in the comments. I would love to hear why you think that someone who's as intelligent as I am, who makes as compelling arguments as I do, magically doesn't know how to make compelling arguments to attractive females about why they should date him. I would love to hear it. Okay, so I switched rooms. This is later on in the day. I'm being interrupted in a different way. They're using fumes and some kind of frequency or some kind of it's kind of like when you're too close to a TV. I often have that sort of sensation, and then they start messing with my brain and so on and so forth. Some kind of whatever that is, electromagnetic interference, whatever that is. Okay. So point number 5. My whole life, I have outdone, outsmarted, outmaneuvered the rest of the world who are from adverse philosophical groupings on the spectrum. Okay, so I've outdone and outsmarted, outmaneuvered, what have you, the rest of the world, and they are from adverse philosophical groupings and on a spectrum. One of the things I've often heard, and it's annoying, right, when people say, hey, I'm not like that, I'm not like that. Okay, if you're not doing the right thing, if you don't cross the line into doing the right thing, you're doing the wrong thing. So there's a spectrum, there's variations, but they're doing the wrong thing. I have overcome the world with heart. Wouldn't you rather be the person who overcame the world with heart than a person from the governing class who's ordering people to persecute them, acting like a big baby, what have you, throwing a fit like a racist gay person or something? That's stupid, right? That's not worth living. Point number 6. Their failed attempts to tell me what to do have utterly emasculated them and their groups. They should not have refused correction and instruction from God and through me. Right? The Bible says whoever hates correction, obviously from God, is stupid. Point number 7. So-called elders refuse to make amends for sin, and they are too unwise and too scared to rally to me. Okay, and for them to do that is for them to testify that they and their groupings are garbage. Point number 8. Presentation means little to nothing if someone is speaking effectively while being dressed well, but they have a subtle LGBT theme and deliberately they are leading their congregation astray in the Luciferian spirit. If that's the case, they fail miserably. So in other words, if somebody is leading a congregation, is a pastor in a church or something, and they're dressed all fancy and they're part of the privileged class, English people, whoever, rich Jews, and they're dressed in the way they often are with that subtle kind of LGBT theme like Freemasons have with their aprons. Like people in suits, their fashion and the fashion magazines is subtly and otherwise gay. And they're trying hard to show everyone else up. And they're saying all kinds of fancy things, and people are telling them the tricks of the trade and helping them, make their case. But they're in a Luciferian spirit. But they are in the spirit of the devil. And not this kind of hypothetical idea, but in the spirit of the principles of evil. And being yoked to the principles of evil, which all the churches, mosques, synagogues, you name it, are. Then they have failed miserably in life, and they don't know what they're doing. Life is not about putting on a show. There's the prostitute. And then there's rhyme and reason, right? The word hoe rhymes with the word show. Point number 9. The failed social, political, and economic activities of the core leadership of the opposition views happens to include their processes of gentrifying people who are more deserving of life, of property, than their inbred oppressors. Okay? These oppressors haven't even ended homelessness with all the resources they have. What they have done is they've proven that they are extremely lost on top of being utter failures. And keep in mind, right, they're making it harder for me to make my points. You see what I'm saying here? Imagine if somebody's saying that I'm magically wrong. And I say magically so don't take me out of context. Okay, and they say it all eloquently and in front of rich people, and they all pretend that they're important. Okay, they're just a bunch of idiots, pompous, pretentious, narcissistic worms. Their arguments are a joke. So if you give Jesus a crown of thorns and put him on a cross, magically you win? When you look at this story, don't you come to the conclusion that Herod is a sissy punk? It's Caesar. When you look at history and the story together, was a sissy punk. And Pilate and Caiaphas. Here you have the Son of God, and Pilate doesn't set him free. No matter what you say and do after that. If you fail to rally to the Son of God and do him justice, you're a failure. How much more if you're given power in that sort of way? And again, when I say power, I don't respect the power of the state. Okay? It is very immature what they're doing. These people are supposed to punish the people who are persecuting Jesus. They didn't do it. They didn't do it in the FBI, the CIA didn't blow the whistle, the local police, sheriffs, you name it. They didn't do that. The communities, the churches that are merged with the government, they didn't do that. They're just a bunch of cowards pretending to have power, teaming up together. And then saying, hey, when we team up together and throw in together and sabotage other people, we can pretend that we're tough, guys. And if we sabotage them enough, we can pretend that we're tougher than them as individuals. And that is pathetic. That is childish, and that's pathetic. I'm sure we can all agree that I'm right to say it. Whether or not you people agree, whether or not we can all agree, I'm going to say the truth. I'm going to do what God sent me here to do, including sealing everybody in hell after my flesh dies. First the top layer of hell, as the world transforms into a more evil place over time as a result of persecuting me, and then when, their flesh dies, when they physically die, they go straight to hell according to what they deserve. They get the position in hell that they deserve, the amount of suffering, what have you. Point number 10. I'm way over time here, so let me just shoot through these last 3 points. I didn't choose 13 on purpose. It just happened to play out that way when they're interrupting me and so on and so forth. On my peers not manning up. All my peers basically, obeyed the governing class devils, right? The governing class devils and not me. Clearly they are wrong, and they were wrong the whole time. Okay, so they can't say, hey, I had cooler shoes than him in 6th grade. Okay, so what? They can't say, well, did he go to Disneyland 5 times? Or, who was the prom king? Or who was more popular? Who cares? You were bending over for the state. And then, for those of you who have kids, you're bending your kids over for the state. And that's the kind of heart you had the whole time. Feeble, weak, pathetic, undesirable, inferior. There's nothing they can say. Obviously, it's far better to have manned up when all is said and done than have sold out. And on top of that, sold out to merely survive or for a fair weather shallow female or mere trickle down pedo, blood money. While the devils who oppress you are laughing at you. And you've also betrayed your families doing so. What the hell can you say? There's nothing they could say. Perhaps they were more accepted by females or gangsters or the church or whatever. So what? They failed too. Are you trying to be the prince of complete pussies? Give me a break here. Think. Point number 11. A short righteous life is greater than a long conformist life. I was clearly right to do things my way. Point number 12. Making 19,000 videos or so in 17 years was a brilliant decision. They were saying things like, you're better off taking down your videos. No, I'm not. No, I wasn't. And the timeline has definitively proven that. And guess what? You have no viable counterargument. They probably started saying that maybe 10 years ago. I don't remember. But it was a long time ago. Now, 10 years later or whatever, I'm right, like about everything else, and they're wrong. What are the implications in regards to who should be in charge? And on the deepest level, who is in charge? 13, only retards try to rule over Jesus or make me, I'm Jesus, a modern day slave. It's like, Pee Wee Herman and Jim Carrey and Richard Nixon making a mean, bitter, sucking on a lemon face. We need to rule over them. That's stupid as hell. Some kind of racist Jews in Israel? Well, we're chosen. It's like, how the hell are you chosen and you're a bad guy? You think you're chosen by God, right? That you be holy then, right? This is the top martial arts ever possible. Our Jews rallying to me in record numbers saying this guy's holy and you need to hear him out, which is what a decent and holy person would do. No. And you know them by their fruit, not by a book or their claims or this interpretation or that. Bottom line, point blank.